First thing I want to say is thank you, because without you, these partnerships would not be possible. And as Jerry Geib said, this is the largest program that AASHTO has. We have 47 state agencies, not to even count the provinces. 47 have contributed to this program, making it the largest program that AASHTO has. And AASHTO has taken note of that. So I have to say thank you to you folks, because it would have never happened without your support. We also want to thank the industry. This is a partnership. And the industry that is here is far-sighted enough to see that if we work together, there can be some tremendous traction, and we can move everything together much better. There's a lot of initiatives right now that we're currently underway with, and I want to explain some of them to you. On the website, we have realized that one of the best ways to get out there and reach folks is on a website, because all of you have given of your time to come here, but your time is valuable. And we realize that, so we have to get information out to you in a usable manner, and we're trying to do that on the website. And one of the initiatives that we're taking right now is trying to get those special provisions, not the specifications that rise to supplemental or standards, but the special provisions on the website. And we already have one of the partnerships, the Northeast Partnership, has got different specifications, special provisions out there. And why are we doing this? Is because the best way that we can improve our standards out there and move forward with special provisions is to copy what is successful in other agencies. So we encourage all of the agencies here, whether you're a state agency or a provincial agency or even a local agency, send in what you have. It doesn't have to be a full suite. If you have one or two special provisions that you think are working for you, please send them in. Another thing that we're into, and maybe many of you are aware of, the research roadmap. The research roadmap was developed back in 2008. And it was conducted with specialists and agencies coming from all over the country, and we actually had 3 meetings, one in Florida, one in Texas, and one in Arizona. And the practitioners sat down, and I'm saying everybody that was there was a practitioner, sat down and developed what are the major issues that we have to do research on. Where are the real gaps? And so through these series of meetings, we put together a research roadmap of the research that needs to be done to propel pavement preservation to the next level. Well, as time has gone on, some people looked at it, some people didn't, but our AASHTO TSP2 oversight panel, which represents and let me get on a sidetrack, we're governed by an oversight panel. And this oversight panel represents every subcommittee in AASHTO. We have a subcommittee on design, subcommittee on materials, research, construction. We have them all there, and maintenance, most importantly, because maintenance gave birth to this group. But they called this to our attention and said, we really need to see what has been done with this research roadmap. So over the past 3 years, we have been doing an exhaustive study through TSP2 and the National Center to find out exactly what research has been done, and we have captured probably well over 2,000 research projects. And we have matched them up with those particular research problem statements that were developed back in 2008 and published in 2009. And do you realize that we still have a tremendous amount of gaps? There are an awful lot of gaps. We do not have to go out and try to think off the top of our head what research is necessary, because it's already documented and it's on the website. If you go into the TSP2 website, you'll see a block there that says Research Roadmap. You can get in and see exactly where the research gaps are. And some of them are really quite amazing that we haven't really addressed them in the past. Gosh, it's going forward toward 10 years. We're not there yet, but we have a lot of work to do. So that's one of the other initiatives we put forth. Video library. Jerry Guy mentioned that. The video library, both for pavements and bridge preservation, is quite amazing, and just about every subject is out there. And Aaron, that's our camera man back here, he does a tremendous job putting that video library together. Tremendous resource, and I can tell you it's kind of gratifying because the state of New Hampshire told me that one of the meetings they attended, the presentation was so appealing to them that they actually took the video of a live stream right off the website back, and they had a teleconference where they brought in different people into a conference room, as well as they connected people from outstate, and they had a streaming video that actually brought that presentation right in so everybody could hear it. I know you're all, at least the agency folks, are representing your agency, but please take some of these things back to your agency, because I think it can really help move things ahead. Finally, I think the one thing that I want to stress on now is certification. One of the areas that every one of the 4 partnerships had in common was the fact that we need certification for preservation, pavement preservation, and we haven't got it. And this whole idea we started talking about when the partnerships first formed, and we could never get traction. I brought this matter up to our oversight panel, and I brought them some ideas, and they said, all right, go for it, which we did. And we developed a framework for certification, and I want to talk to you about this framework. The idea of certification, as I said, we've talked about a long time, but we've never really made progress. And we developed the framework and passed the framework around, and one of the things that we did is pass the framework over to the ISA group. For those of you that may not know, that's the International Slurry Surfacing Association. And Rex Eberly, Rex, if you could stand up, Rex represents one of the people on that group looking at certification, and they come back with some recommendations. And this is a work in progress, folks, because we need certification to raise the bar on preservation. And I think that many of us that have been in this business for a long time, we realize that what's really important out there is to get a good job, because if we don't have a good job, it will blow up immediately. It's not like a hot mix. You can put down a hot mix, get a terrible job, and it won't show up for a year or so. And we do get terrible jobs with hot mix just like everything else. But we get good jobs too. And so how do we assure that we're going to raise the bar and get good jobs out of preservation? Well, there's been a number of ways we can improve it. The first thing is specifications. And the Emulsion Task Group, and that is sponsored by the Resource Center, Jason Dietz, Tom Harmon, and those folks, they have been supporting the Emulsion Task Force. The Emulsion Task Force right now is writing specifications for every one of the emulsion-based preservation treatments. So far, chip seals and microsurfacing have been submitted to the subcommittee on materials. They're the ones that vote the specifications into the AASHTO spec book. And if you are not familiar with AASHTO specifications, there's 3 parts. There's a design part, material part, and construction part. And so it's quite an undertaking, and there's some people in the room, Jim, there's a number of other people in the room that have been instrumental in putting these specifications together. It's a long process, but we're working on it, and eventually every one of the treatments we want to get into the AASHTO spec book. Doesn't mean that it's going to supersede your state or your local agency specification, but at least you have a specification there that's a model. You can refer to the spec by parts or by totality if you want, but it's nonetheless there. Second part to improve things is training. And I know that through going through 44 states that we've done with our reviews over the past 10 years, Training is a big obstacle for most agencies. It's difficult to get training in. And you know, when budgets are cut, what are the first two things that are always cut? Travel and training. And we know that, so that's a problem. And think of the countless hours that agencies have put into the traditional treatments, and yet we're expected to go out and put down microsurfacing or chip sealing or crack sealing just like it's a nothing treatment, where it really requires a lot of expertise to do it right. And that's why we have so many failures out there, is because as agency personnel, sometimes our inspectors may not necessarily even know what they're looking at. So training is a big deal, but now let's talk about certification. And that's what I want to get into, certification, because certification is really a partnership. It isn't the fact that we're going to say we'll never have a bad job, because your best contractors sometimes have a bad day. But it's how do they respond to a problem out there. And if they make the problem good, then all is great. What we want to avoid are these, quote, taillight specials, where contractor swoops in, low bid. He got low bid because he cut corners. And he left the good contractor high and dry, because the bad contractor hurts the good contractor just as much as he hurts the agency. And the contractors that are here have the vision that they know they want to raise the bar. There isn't an industry person in this room that isn't interested in raising the bar, because you know and I know, once the bad contractor's there, the agency just doesn't have the stomach to do it anymore. And that's our problem. So we know that these treatments will work effectively, but the thing I want to say is, first of all, it's going to be a voluntary program. There is no requirement that people have to be certified, but if agencies are really interested in raising the bar, they'll certify just like they do hot mix, just like they do with concrete, just like they do with soils. There are certification programs now in place, and we need one for preservation. And the second thing is that this is a confirmation that both the agency and the contractor personnel have demonstrated a level of proficiency. It doesn't mean they're necessarily experts, but they at least understand the basics and how to get this good job and what a good job really looks like. And that's really critical. What does a good job look like? Certification has another tool, and sometimes we call it certification, but it's really accreditation. Because one of the things that ISSA is very strongly in support of, and that's raising the bar. In other words, a contractor maybe should go through an accredited laboratory. And the accredited laboratory, there's a couple different accreditations out there, but the one that they're looking at is the highest accreditation possible, and that's the AMRL. That's the AASHTO approved labs. And so for mixed designs and so forth, in the future, we're looking to go with an accredited lab. Now, it's going to take a while. This doesn't happen overnight. A lot of documentation, a lot of procedures, and then the technicians that are in an accredited lab, they have to go through a certification with AMRL to show that they can adequately do these tests. So if they know how to do the tests, then we're partway there. But the other part of it is the pavement preservation certification, and that's for both the agencies and the industry. So where is the initiative coming from? Well, I developed the framework. ISSA has really been an on-board player. They are really going to make this thing work. And taking this before the TSP2, this will eventually become an AASHTO TSP2 certification. However, before we jump into that, we can't put both feet into the pool without testing, jump into the pool without testing the water. So we're going to have some pilot programs, and we'll talk about the pilot programs in a little bit. But this is so important. Now, as far as the accreditation for the laboratories, like I said, ISSA, they're all in. And right now, AASHTO, the AMRL program, is all in. So this is a work in progress. But If we're going to raise the bar, we've got to jump into this pool. So what is certification all about? Well, certification requires training, and we'll talk about different places to get training. But, you know, a lot of preservation is we don't know what we don't know. And we have to really bring ourselves up to speed, and we have to begin to realize that if you're going to play in the big leagues, then you got to maybe go to training camp. And training is all about what we're talking about. And once you go to training camp and you get this training, then you're going to have to really show proficiency, because you're going to have to pass an examination. Now, there'll be different types of examinations. Agencies will have to take an examination, and we're talking, and this is still, I mean, I want you to talk to Rex and myself. This is still, we're kind of molding this model to get it put together, and we may have to tweak it here and there, but we're looking at an examination for agencies somewhere between 50 and 75 questions. And there'll be multiple choice or true false, but you're going to have to show proficiency and get a score of 70% or better. Now, contractors, it's going to be tougher, because really, who better to know about the treatments than the contractors putting them down? But they should know more than the agency personnel about the treatments. And so therefore, it's probably going to be 75 to 100 questions given to them, same format, but they'll have to pass. So that's one way to measure proficiency. Now, where do you get the training? Well, ISSA currently has a slurry systems workshop. It's about a week long, and they get into actual mixed designs. They get into a lot of details. Agencies go to those, but primarily they're geared at this point to industry themselves. It really trains the people to put the product down. But I've gone to it myself many years ago. It's an excellent training opportunity. The National Center has one-day courses, and we can also provide those courses. Also, there are web-based courses, both NHI for free, it's through the TC3 program. Federal Highway, as I said, they offer them, and so does ISSA. These are free courses, and you can get actual credits. You take the exam, they have hurdle tests, and many of you that have ever taken a web-based course, there's an examination at the end. And then you get a certificate that said you actually completed the course successfully. The examinations and the actual record management we'll do at the National Center through Michigan State University. And we will post those people that are certified on the web. So it'll be available for all to see. One of the things we talked about is how do we actually carry off a certification program? It doesn't make sense to certify everything, because to know the level of detail for all of these products that are in the preservation realm would take forever to know the kind of detail. So we said, well, let's break them down in chunks that make sense. In other words, we're starting out actually with emulsion-based treatments. There's an awful lot of training right now as far as hot mix. I mean, they're already certified. And we maybe need to talk about concrete a little later, but we got to put our feet in the water first. So we're going to break it down into 3 categories. You can be certified for the first category, which would be micro slurry and polymer modified slurry. You could be certified for chip seals, fog seals, and scrub seals. Or you could be certified for rejuvenators and asphalt sealers and crack treatments. Because we know that not every agency does every treatment. And so it's a smorgasbord. You go out and you pick exactly what is pertinent to your agency. And you could take all 3 certifications, or you could just get certified in one area. And we're not expecting one person to be certified in everything. Probably one person to be certified in maybe Group B, and one person may be certified in Group C from your, in your area, your particular area. So how would it work for agencies? Let's talk about this. And like I say, this is not in concrete, we're molding it, but the way it looks like is we're saying that it probably makes a lot of sense to have at least one person certified in one of those categories. And your agency may only suggest one area, one category to be certified in, but one person certified from every district, or if your state has regions, one region, or some states don't call them districts or regions, they call them divisions. But one person from each one of the divisions or regions or districts, and one person from headquarters. So if your state had 5 districts, it'd be 5 plus the 1, it'd be 6 people certified for category. Now that's the minimum. It doesn't mean that, but what we wanted was enough there that if a person were sick or they were away, that there'd be somebody else to cover for them. Now, the certified person in turn would attend the pre-construction meeting, because most agencies never really know who the inspector is, right? Until a job is actually let and ready to be constructed. So you may not necessarily know who the inspector is, so the certified person would go to the pre-construction meeting, answer questions, and also provide just-in-time training for the inspector. But there'd be another thing. The certified person would also witness the equipment calibration process, because what's so critically important for micro or chip or so many of these is how do you know that you're following the same mix design that was actually given to you by the accredited lab. And if you're not calibrating your equipment to the mix design, then you're not getting what you thought you were getting. Much more complicated than what a lot of people think. And then we would prefer to see that certified person available to answer any questions from the inspector in the field, so they'd be available by telephone, at least a go-to person within the agency. So it's not overwhelming, but this is the idea of the certification for the agency. Now for the contractor, first of all, the contractor has to put together a comprehensive, and I mean it would have to be a comprehensive quality control plan. And that quality control plan would be reviewed, and if it didn't contain the elements that was necessary, then it would have to be revised until it was an approved quality control plan. And it would have to be followed. That would give the agency something to actually look at and say, this is your own quality control plan and you're not following it. What's the problem? Also, the contractor would have to have trained and certified personnel in their workforce. And that's still being kind of put together, but different training at different levels within the contracting group or within the company. Certification, and I didn't mention this, certification for agencies and industry would be for 3 years. 3-year certification. But the contractors would have to renew it, renew the documentation every year to actually show the trained and certified people within their own company. In other words, you don't just train somebody, walk away and forget it. You're going to have to make sure you have a workforce. And you know, agencies have problems with turnover. Well, contractors have problems the same way with turnover. And so you've got to have that training. And that would be done internal to the company. And then they could lose their certification anytime that we find a fraudulent action or any misleading of the agency. They would lose their certification. Now, it doesn't mean that's a bad job, because as I said to begin with, you can have a bad job, but if you make it right and you make it a good job, then that's what's important. Everybody's entitled to have a bad job here and there, but it's how you deal with a bad job. So that's kind of the structure. The pilot program. We would like at least one agency from everyone or each one of the partnerships to participate. We're still talking with the Northeast, but for the Rocky Mountain West, Nevada DOT has consented. They want to be in on this. Mississippi DOT has also said they're in on it. And then in talking, I understand Illinois is very interested and would be in on this. We'll learn from the certification process. We may have to tweak a few things as time goes on. If we can show benefit to the certification program, then that's what's important. So an agency that wants to go in on this is not to be confused with pre-qualification. This is merely in the specification agreed to by your agency that you would say the contractor must be a certified contractor. And that's essentially what it is. So, any questions on the certification? Okay, question is, do we have a timeline when the pilot program is going to be ready to go? In talking with Rex at the ISSA, Slurry Systems Workshop, that they're going to hold in January. We will give examinations after the training to make sure that the examination questions are pertinent. We can always review them, but until they're actually given, that's the first step. We want to make sure that the questions we give are good, applicable, cross-cutting questions. If we can move forward on that, we're looking forward to trying to get this thing off the ground this spring, this coming spring. Because, you know, as Jim Moulthrop was talking about, and we all know through federal legislation, it's here. I mean, your agency is required to have asset management plans, you're looking at pavement performance indicators and so forth. We're going to fall on our face if we develop an asset management plan that's full of pavement preservation treatments that don't perform. We've got to make sure they perform. And so we want to fast track this as much as possible, but we want to take it very methodically, think of all the angles and fine tune it before would you say that's correct, Rex?
Well, I think so. Okay, so our goal is to have the pilot states in operation this spring. We may not have all of the exact testing, all of the exact training in place, but we'll have enough to where we see where we're at. We hope to do a full national rollout at the October meeting in Nashville and have everything in place so all states that want to participate can be fully operational by the 2017 construction season. That's our goal. We hope we don't get all 50 at once. It might get a little exciting, but I think we can handle that. Again, both groups, we want to make sure that both for contractors and DOTs that the certification is rigorous enough to make sense, but it is also something that is not so onerous that nobody's going to want to do it. We understand that we have to be flexible with your manning issues, with contractors issues, but we have to make sure that both groups, the contractor and the DOT and the inspectors, are on the same page, and that's the main thing what this is for. It's so you as a DOT feel confident that your contractor understands what's going on and that your folks understand what your specification is and what's required of the contractor. So
with that, I appreciate all your patience. particularly with my flub up on the presentation, but I think it's time for break, and so look forward to talking with you later. Thank you.